Beef short plate is one of my favorite cuts of beef. It's so tasty and so quick to cook. Today, I'm going to be using it for two well-loved Filipino dishes, Bistek Tagalog and my version of a Pares. So I'm excited to show you how. So today we're going to be making really quick versions of Bistek Tagalog and Pares. With Bistek Tagalog, you usually use cheaper cuts of meat, and for Pares as well. And with cheaper cuts of meat, it usually means that it'll take a much longer time to get that meat tender. So by making the switch to a fattier cut and a thin cut of meat, like our short plate, you're going to shave off a lot of time. Pares is usually a saucy and soupy dish with the soup on the side. But to make it really quick, I thought it would be fun to take kind of the principle of making a tapa and put all the flavors of Pares in there. And also, we're going to be sacrificing the broth that goes with the Pares, but we will never sacrifice the flavor of Pares that we know and love. Okay, the first thing we're gonna do is marinate the beef. Here we have about 1 kilo of beef short plate, or the belly, thinly sliced. And that's exactly what's going to make this such a quick dish to make, because this doesn't take much time at all to cook. We're going to cut it into fourths. So we'll separate the two into separate marinating bowls. And this is a great way to meal prep as well. So you can definitely prep these two dishes at the same time, and then all of a sudden you have two dishes ready for you in the week. So we'll start with the first one. We'll do the Bistek Tagalog first. We're going to start marinating our Bistek Tagalog with just the same ingredients that you would use for any regular Bistek Tagalog, which is soy sauce, some calamansi juice. So with bistek, you really want the sourness of the calamansi. The nice thing about using such a thin cut of meat is it'll absorb everything you put into it very, very quickly. About 8 pieces of calamansi juice straight in there. So while that marinates, set it aside. You can use white onions or red onions. Doesn't really matter, it'll give you the same delicious result. This looks like a lot, but once it cooks down, you're going to find that you're going to want more onions, so I'm going to add, for fun, a red onion. Now that we've marinated the Bistek Tagalog, we're going to marinate our dry Pares. So this is essentially like making the bistek marinade. So we're going to put in soy sauce. This looks like a lot, but because we're only marinating it for such a short amount of time, this star anise needs to get in there. Pares takes forever to boil and make the meat tender. So I thought, why not get all the flavors that you love about Pares and make it just like tapa. I cook with this cut of meat very, very often. You can make so many different things. Now that we've got both dishes marinating, it's time to cook it. We're going to use pretty much the same cooking method for this, so you can actually use the same pan if you wanted to. Okay, first thing we're gonna do is saute the onions for the Bistek Tagalog. Because we're marinating the bistek, it's already got your salt that you need in there and the acidity from the calamansi. This will give us a nice, sweet flavor. So this is where personal preference comes in. I tend to like my onions just a little bit of crunch. At this point, I'm going to take half of the onions and reserve that for later. The rest of the onions stay in the pan. With your spatula, just separate all the pieces of meat. Well, these onions stay nice and crisp for me because I like it that way. So if you were to cook this with a regular bistek cut, which is normally like a breakfast steak cut of meat, you'd have to let this simmer for a much longer time to get it nice and tender. But because we're using a nice, fatty, tender cut of thinly sliced beef, we're already halfway done. This is an optional step, but I highly recommend it. Everything tastes better with a little bit of butter. And now we're ready to plate. And then we grab the onions we reserved earlier. There's a lot of onions, but that's really good. Okay, I'm a big fan of using just one pot, even when you're cooking multiple dishes, because it means less cleanup later. So, in the same pan that we used earlier, we're going to cook our pares. At this point, when you see that it's halfway cooked, we don't want all of that marinade to reduce just yet. We want a little bit more time for that star anise and all your other ingredients to still keep simmering in there. So, add a bit of water. If you want this dry pares to not be so dry, you can actually stop here and it'll taste really good. But today I'm kind of feeling like a pares tapa, that dry. So that's what I'm going for here. Not bad. And then garlic here, you can also use sinangag or garlic fried rice. Then another must when you're eating pares is chili garlic oil. And just serve that on the side. Yum. All right, dig under the onions. The meat is tender, and all the flavors you're looking for are there. Got the saltiness from the soy sauce, and that nice crunch and sweetness from the onions that go on top. So good. All of that marinade is in the beef. You'll never know that it only took a few minutes to cook. And now our dry pares. The fat in there is nicely caramelized. It's salty, sweet, got the flavor from the star anise just right, even if it seemed like we put a lot in there. But all that flavor is nicely distributed in the meat. And just like that, you have 2 meals in just a few minutes and just as good as the real thing. It's so weird having 3 cameras. Okay, I don't know what to say now. But yeah, that's it.